What's up, everybody? So I want to read this article. This is from Focus on the Family. It's a Christian organization, and the title is Reasons to Believe in God. So somebody wrote in a question. I'm going to read the question, and then I'm going to read you the answer that they gave, because I think that it makes a lot of sense, and I think this is something that a lot of people might not understand, or they might miss. So here we go. Can you give me any proof that God exists? Okay. I consider myself a practical person and a realist. Faith in God may be fine for sentimentalists, dreamers, and romantics who see the world through emotionally tinted glasses. But I'm determined to base my personal philosophy and my concept of truth on nothing but rock-solid facts. Since there's no proof that God exists, or that Jesus ever lived, in other words, since these ideas can't be objectively demonstrated by logical, controlled, and repeatable methods, I see no reason to believe in Christianity. What do you say to that? And here's the answer. With all due respect, we'd like to suggest that your comments reflect a common misunderstanding. It's all well and good to talk about facts and reality, but you're forgetting that there are different kinds of facts and different ways of apprehending the truth. Stated simply, you're confusing science with history. We all know and believe many things about ourselves, our world, and the people around us. Many of these things can't be demonstrated by logical, controlled, and repeatable methods. You can know, for instance, that your mother loves you, that a particular Beethoven symphony lifts your spirits, or that your dad's second cousin spent a good portion of his childhood in Peoria, but you may not be able to prove any of this objectively. That's just the way life is. You should realize this if you're a hard-headed realist. The kind of proof you're talking about belongs almost exclusively to the realm of hard science. We call it empirical proof. It's the kind of proof that depends upon verifiable and repeatable experiment. By way of contrast, the evidence for historical events such as the life of Jesus Christ is forensic in nature. It's the same kind of evidence that lawyers use to build a case in a court of law. Even the softer sciences, such as psychology and sociology, are heavily dependent upon evidence of this nature. You need to keep these two different kinds of proof separate in your mind if you want to think clearly and carefully about the world in which we live. You're right. We can't prove empirically that Christ lived, died, and rose again. But then we can't prove empirically that George Washington was the first president of the United States either. In other words, we can't devise a repeatable experiment capable of demonstrating these facts in a controlled laboratory experiment or environment. But that doesn't mean that there isn't plenty of forensic and historical evidence to support them. Far from it. Whether you realize it or not, Christianity wasn't simply made up. It wasn't invented by a lot of emotionally motivated sentimentalists, dreamers, and romantics. All the relevant evidence indicates that it burst upon the scene of human history entirely of its own accord. All the relevant evidence indicates that it burst upon the scene of human history entirely of its own accord. You understand, of course, that we're talking here about forensic historical evidence. The Christian faith arose almost overnight in direct response to a remarkable series of actual events. A man appeared on the scene who claimed to be God. This man spoke and acted in such a way as to validate his claims, and eventually he paid for his bold words by dying a gruesome death on a Roman cross. Finally, he proved himself by rising from the dead on the third day. We'd like to suggest that you examine the Christian faith in terms of the factual verifiability of these events. Don't think of it as an emotion-based religion, to be evaluated on purely religious or philosophical grounds. Instead, read the Gospels as you would read any other historical book. If you're interested in looking into the evidence for the historicity of the New Testament documents, we'd suggest that you check out a book entitled The Case for Christ. So I just wanted to read that to you guys. I think that there was important points in this article that I may have not addressed in my last video, that was more specific. So, for example, in my last video, I said, that there is evidence for Christianity. It might not be the evidence that you like. It might not even be enough evidence that would convince you to believe. But it nonetheless is actually some evidence. And I think for someone to just dismiss that as being ignorant and as not being honest and fair. And I don't think that a lot of people want to be fair when it comes to looking at this seriously and having a fair minded approach to these things. So I hope that you enjoyed this. I hope that you learned something here that you might have not known. Again, I just want to let everybody know that if you want to comment on the videos, please be respectful. If you don't have anything good to say, or if you're not being, respectable or polite, I will simply ignore it and block you. So just keep that in mind. We want to have a civil, dialogue. We want to have a friendly environment here. We want to be able to be mature adults and not just argue back and forth. If you don't like, what you hear, you're free to leave. So I just want to remind everybody about that. And I think other than that, guys, that's about all that I have. Don't forget to smash that like. Let's hit 6,000 subscribers. Keep pushing that like, guys. And with that, I'll see you on my next video.